Hello everyone, this is Sebastian aka PokerVIP for PokerVIP, and today I'm back with a 4-part video series playing on microgaming, especially on the Guts Poker side, which is part of the microgaming network or player pool. And yeah, let's first start with a little introduction about the poker skin. I mean, a lot of you might know microgaming. The good things about microgaming are basically all the skins and sites have 30% flat rakeback, which is obviously pretty great. And then pretty much all the skins have like a 20% rakeback deposit bonus, first deposit bonus. And those get cleared in different ways, in different fashions. And that's a great part about the Guts Poker side, because they are like releasing of that first deposit bonus is probably the best. And yeah, because it gets released in parts of like $5, so in like $5 slabs, while so like every $25 you rake in, you get $5 or euros rather, because the sites are in euro. On other sites it's a bit different, so you basically just kind of need to rake in more to get to the point where you release part of the first deposit bonus. So oftentimes, like, your first deposit bonus kind of runs out, like you only have like 2 days left on it, and you are like stuck between like two payouts, if that makes sense. But there's no real danger in here because you get paid out every $25 you rake in, which is quite consistently. So that's a great thing about the Guts Poker site. Let's see, but you're rather smallish. Get some juicy value versus the limper. Yeah, so that's pretty good. Overall, the rake on microgaming is really low. Because their rake cap, for example, is pretty low. Like at 20 NL, I think it's 3 VPs. So let's go in for a cold 4-ball here. 320. Let's go for about $4. Yeah. So, and I've already played a bit here before. Like, I've played a microgaming before, like a few months ago. For min, let's actually call here. And I've also played like in the past few days a bit on here. And I can definitely advise you to play it. Seems pretty soft so far. Only have a small sample though. And yeah, rake seems good. Rakeback system good. First deposit system good. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with the site. But without a further introduction, let's jump right into the action, which we already kind of did. And yeah, let's get to the strategy part. Again, like in the last video, I'm going to focus a decent bit on rake, because I do think it's a pretty massive thing. Interesting flop. Texture where I probably check a lot of my range in theory, and exploitively I do think my hand kind of is like good to check call. Yeah, we do allow him to realize his equity with like overcards, which sucks, so 1/3 definitely has some merits. At the same time, I do think people spazzing a lot versus 1/3, and I don't really want to face a raise here. Kind of want to pot control, keep the pot small. We reverse straight. I mean, kind of trivial. We go for value. Sizing wise, we can choose a few different sizings here. Actually, I don't think he really has anything ever here. So I'm going to 1/3. Maybe he spazzes over it. Maybe he calls really light. Maybe he just snap folds. Checking to induce is also like an option, but once he checks back twice, I don't think there's a lot of inducing going on. So I'm going to play on the anonymous tables. So they are like, on microgaming, they are anonymous tables and non-anonymous tables. And yeah, I'm gonna mainly play on anonymous tables because I do think they are softer overall. And there's also another part because, so when I played back here like a few months ago, you could just use HUDs. You couldn't use HUDs at the anonymous tables, but you could use HUDs at the regular tables. So back then I was usually playing more regular tables than anonymous tables. But right now you can't use your HUDs on either. But that's not 100% true, because you actually can use them. You just have to set back your Hold'em manager to like an earlier version. That's at least what I heard. I'm pretty confident it works because a lot of you might know Jay Nandas. He's like doing a bankroll challenge in PLO and he's using a HUD. So you basically have to set back your Hold'em manager to like an older version. But I haven't done that yet. So yeah. Since I haven't done that, and that means I can't use my HUDs anyways, I'm gonna play on the anonymous tables where, as far as I know, you can't use HUDs anyways. I think back in the day with like Poker Tracker, you actually could even use HUDs on the anonymous tables. I'm not sure if that's still a thing. I don't have Poker Tracker, I'm using Hold'em Manager. So yeah. Plus, as said, I do think the anonymous tables are generally softer. I mean, it should generally also be more attractive for recreational players to play in an anonymous environment than an anonymous table. And when I do look at the regular tables, I mean, I also did play on the regular tables a bit. They also don't seem really like crazily like strong and rec filled. Like, they're definitely a decent bit of recreationals there still. But you definitely did meet a certain amount of regulars there. An increased amount than on anonymous tables, though it's hard to spot a regular at the anonymous tables, granted. So on this flop, we could just 1/3, we could check, we can do a few different things. I'm gonna start by 1/3ing because it's kind of like simplifying my strategy. It kind of makes it easy. We gain the protection and the value instantly. On this card, I'm actually gonna barrel down. I have pretty strong blockers to Queen X. Granted, yeah, Ace Queen and King Queen probably a 3-bet pre, so it's not like a huge part of range. I still block them and I still have some reasonable equity, like I'm drawing to nuts, obviously. Plus my overcards are reasonably often out, and he doesn't really hit the queen that frequently. Yeah, he has Queen 10, yeah, he has some Queen X of diamonds, or like a hand like Queen Jack 1 diamond and float with the flop. Yeah, those are possible. At the same time, he has a lot of middle pairs. On the diamond, I do think he has a reasonable amount of diamonds. Still, I don't think diamonds fold turn, so I'm actually just gonna give up with my hand. If he shows up with like a hand like Jack 10 and like 10-9, I'm kind of sad because I probably would have gotten him off that hand by triple barreling. Also, this hand is kind of good on like non-diamond runouts to bluff because we unblock his diamonds, which can always fold, right? So we unblock like the King Jack of diamonds, Ace 2, Ace 2 of diamonds not, but Ace 3 of diamonds, Ace 4 of diamonds, Ace 5 of diamonds, Ace 6 of diamonds, Ace 7 of diamonds. He did have the Queen Jack with 1 diamond, which does make sense. He played his hand fine. Contemplating the value bet river is certainly reasonable, but probably too thin. Yeah, he played his hand fine. It's just unlucky. Like, first of all, we did get the value on the flop, which is kind of good. It also like kind of showcases how wide he's willing to float the flop, which kind of means that like he still gets to the turn with like a lot of hands, right? If he gets with Queen Jack there, he also gets there with King Jack, like Ace Jack. So yeah, also like on the turn, it's like a mixed bag. It's somewhat of a merge. So we also sometimes do get some value there on the turn. Granted, it's gonna be kind of hard to realize versus those hands, like our showdown value. At the same time, our plan was to triple barrel, so we don't really realize our showdown value versus those hands, but those hands like a King Jack double floats and then just always folds the river if it misses. So we're just gonna take it down with that hand a lot on the river. Basically, his range on the turn is still really wide, and I do think we kind of want to barrel into that wide range with reasonable blockers and somewhat reasonable equity. So here, 3-betting or calling are fine. Both are reasonable. We have a fish in the blinds. I'm just gonna flat it, but 3-betting would be fine. Yeah, opening a Queen Jack. This hand like doesn't mind to play multi-way as much. Like it's a reasonable hand multi-way. It's definitely going to be profitable to be a min pre. 3-betting could be profitable, but it also could be kind of marginal depending on like villain. I also do expect like overall more cold calling of 3-bets going on in like weaker games, so that kind of hurts the ability to 3-bet. 3-betting is still gonna be good. But yeah. Okay. Pretty easy fold. Pretty straightforward. Pretty easy fold with the Queen 9 of spades. On this turn, I do think he has a reasonable amount of Ace X, so I'm not gonna barrel. If he checks back turn, I'm not sure if I even want to bluff then. I mean, on that river I would just stab. Because basically, I mean, this river is like pretty like polarized. Either he has a diamond or not. Pretty easy open. If he 3-bets, we have two options. We can 4-bet off call. Usually you just want a flat. Queen Jack UTG without like a lot of like if I had like 2 or 3 guys tagged as a fish, I would open it, but so far only 1 guy is tagged as recreational, so I'm just gonna let it go. Let it go. Okay, I'm not gonna start singing, sorry. My voice probably wasn't made to be a singer, so let's skip the singing part. King 10, probably gonna see a flop. Oh, man, that's better actually than playing a flop, seeing a flop. Just getting the walk of King 10, pretty solid result. Queen 10, we have the limper, so we have 2 options. We can overlimp or isolate. Both are reasonable, both are going to be plus EV, both are going to be winning. I'm going to isolate this time. Both have different merits. This way we get more often heads up versus the fish. Just gonna see what around half pot. We have some reasonable backdoors, we have some overcards, we have some. We get min click back. I mean, yeah, it's tempting to peel. It's looking at like the backdoors, but nah, yeah, not gonna peel. I obviously have a ton of better hands to peel than that one. Kinda unfortunate there to get a raise. I'm not expecting this passive fish to raise me a lot there, but sure, sometimes you will. Flopping a flush draw. Relatively high one. Can obviously call for half pot. Pretty bad turn. Drawing that versus a lot now. Yeah, bets. Easy fold. I mean, Billing can easily have quads. Nah, but I mean, we can't peel there. It's kind of easy. At least it's an easy decision, right? Should never be too like depressed about having to fold in such a spot, because at least we did have an easy decision. At least we are good enough to see that it's an easy decision, even though granted that one is pretty obvious and face up, right? But yeah. By the way, for min I'm gonna call there in the BB, even though rake is relatively high. Even though on micro-gaming it's not that high. I'm still gonna, like, it was like min and overcall, me closing the action, getting like 1,000,000,000 to 1. I'm gonna definitely see a flop there with a relatively strong hand. Here for min, I'm also gonna call. For 3x, I probably would fold because he's not full stack, so implied odds go down. Yeah. So yeah. Generally gonna steal pretty wide at the button because I do think people are generally gonna overfold. A lot of those hands also get submerged by rake because generally like we're gonna win less post flop because the rake is relatively high. But I do think this gets like this argument kind of gets like countered by the argument that people are like overfolding the blinds in general, right? Because if they overfold, it's just gonna print. Pretty easy c-bet with top pair. Not a lot to say about. We get value by a decent chunk of hands. We could consider to check back such a weak top pair. Would be not unreasonable. Pretty easy turn check, pretty bad turn cut overall. Still have some showdown value, still have some equity to improve. I mean, this card, like this runner is pretty bad. Kind of as bad as it gets. We still could chop or win, so just gonna check down. We do eat 10 high, which is bluffing, which is weird. Granted, his blockers are pretty bad, but as played, I probably would stab the river in his position. I mean, we can just fold our draws, which are higher, so yeah, should be a winning stab there from him. Yeah. I mean, realistically, we are still playing like on the river. We're playing king queen, so it's not looking that grim. But obviously, like the flushes got there, the ace high floats got there, and like the 9x improved, so it's not a wonderful spot on river. Once he checks though, I do feel like we have a reasonable amount shot on value. Obviously not enough to value bet there. Value betting there with like queen 7 would be pretty outrageous. And not good. So this guy isolates the fish again. Sadly, I kind of wanted to see a flop with a somewhat reasonable hand to see a flop, I suppose. Wouldn't have been the worst flop. Also wouldn't have been the best flop, to be quite frank. But yeah. Okay. He snap calls. Don't think he folds turn. He snap checks back, probably realizing not having not a fold equity. Is he gonna bluff on this king? Potentially. I don't think he folds like a reasonable pair here ever. So, I mean, he probably just had like an 8. I can't really check because you can't check hand histories on microgaming. I mean, actually you can on the regular tables, but not on anonymous tables. The replay is pretty marginal on the regular tables, but you can still like check their holdings, which helps. But on the anonymous tables, that's not a thing. So yeah, sadly don't know what he called him down there with, but in all probability had like 8 or something along those lines, like a pocket 9s type of hand, even though that probably shouldn't belong into his limping range, though he's limping a lot, so maybe he just doesn't have a raising range. By the way, once you see such a guy limping a lot, you can already kind of draw the conclusion that he's like a passive fish. So once this guy kind of like raises you in like any spot and you don't have a really strong hand, you're probably fucked. So keep that in mind. And I think I've said it in like my Zoom video as well. Excuse me for the hiccups, by the way. Generally, most recreationals are of the passive nature. Or like in general, most players in the pool are gonna be of the passive nature. So, yeah. Generally want to keep that in mind. Just because someone is a fish doesn't mean he goes apeshit crazy every time. It certainly does higher the chance somewhat that he does some things we wouldn't expect or that are generally not that good, but yeah. Closing the action here, getting like min and a million to 1. We are definitely going to see a flop with a suited king. Right here we're going to check back our middle pair. Kind of straightforward. Could 1/3. I think check back is better. He's probably going to stab a reasonable amount on this turn. We have a relatively high pair. He just leads. That's kind of weird. We have a relatively high pair and we do gain a lot from protection, so I'm going to bet my hand to get value on protection. Pretty easy check back river, regardless of the card, basically. Besides if like it's a queen or an 8. And on this river is a really easy check back. Probably losing really often. Okay, just king 10, no diamond. I mean, you do you, boy. I'm instantly gonna take him as recreational for that turn float. Hit nothing. Why do you peel turn? That's, for example, a hand I would expect to like fold out, so get the protection versus that hand because it still has some equity. Yeah. Don't know. At the same time, I do think we get a reason one-off. I mean, it's kind of trivial. We kind of have top pair there on the turn, and we go for value. Oh, that's a reasonable flop. That's a reasonable flop. So let's bet a middling, biggish type of sizing to get some value. Definitely expecting a reasonable amount of calls. It's a pretty bad turn. Not because we are beat, because we still have to store nuts, but because it's going to be hard to get paid. Gonna bet around half pottish to get value by his 2 pairs, which he says some of. We do block some boat outs, which is, I guess, helpful. Yeah, gonna get a fold there a lot. Oh, a reasonable amount. It's okay. Generally not expecting to get a lot of 3 barrels in there anyways. Protection is also gonna change a reasonable amount there, like the 4 straights are gonna come, the 3 flushes are gonna come, board pairs are gonna come, so yeah. But yeah, that turn was obviously a bit unfortunate. Yeah. So I hope we get into like some spots where I can explore like the whole rake a bit more. Like marginal preflop spots basically, where I can basically make some tight folders and some adjustments because of rake. For example, this is probably getting too submatched by rake this hand. Once again, it's kind of like iffy because I do think they overfold their blinds. At the same time, those hands get submerged by rake, so it's like a double-edged sword in a way. And yeah, I could 4-bet, bluff 4-bet, I could call, I could fold. All 3 options are probably kind of relatively... You have shit blockers and no equity, I'm just gonna check. I'm gonna call. See a flop. Go from there. But I think all three options are kind of similar in a V. So yeah, the 8-7 is definitely like a pretty loose open. Bet's pretty big, we just fold. Pretty straightforward. Yeah. So 7-8 definitely marginal. Let's actually just fold it then now, because I just said 3 times that it's pretty marginal. That's certainly gonna be fine to open it. Like, it's never gonna be amazing. It's never gonna be totally terrible. It kind of depends on what the blinds are doing. But without a HUD and without like tags or nodes, I'm just gonna kind of go with like what I assume of the population, and I assume of the population to overfold their blinds. So I'm gonna open it head wider. Well, 7-8 is a good hand if you flop that flop. But if we look at the pot size, there were a lot of like re-raises going on pre. So I suppose we wouldn't have seen a flop anyways. Bets 420. So he's committing himself. I mean, he's probably committing himself any overpair here. That's a relatively good board for the defender, of course. A lot of middle cards. A lot of connected middle cards. So he's gonna face a reasonable amount of like fight back there from the defender. Give me a spot. I guess we can just look at like a few other spots. So cutoff opens, c-bets and gets check raised on the spot, probably pretty nutted. Generally, those are pretty nutted. Oh, we have 2 hands. Nice, let's go. Let's go. So if this guy would have opened, I would have made my 3-bet a bit smaller because he's shorter. And generally, if we're deeper, make my 3-bets a bit bigger. And if the stack sizes are a bit more shallow, I'm gonna make my 3-bets a bit smaller. Oh, actually 3 playable hands. Let's go. 3-bet me. Open shove it. Let's go. Nope. That's fine. Versus the recreational, I'm just gonna give up. I don't think the recreational is gonna fold enough, so I won't bluff into him. And my ace high has some showdown value and some ways to improve. And right here, blind on blind, I'm definitely gonna 3-bet. And if he would 4-bet, I probably would get it in because he's non-full stacked and probably recreational. And pocket tens is just kind of get it in at that point. So on this flop, we obviously could c-bet. We still like get a decent bit out of protection, though it's pretty thin, and we do want to have some checkbacks versus the recreational. That's not really that important though. So what's the highest EV line versus the recreational? Do we want to take the... We certainly also can get some value on this texture. I think I'm going to c-bet it. I'm going to c-bet a round half pot, get the protection, get the value. We obviously have a lot of equity going into the turn. So this is like getting really thin now on the turn. At the same time, I do expect his queens and jacks to pile it in pre a lot. Because this guy is so shallow, I'm not going to flat my 7s here because it kind of like reduces my implied odds a lot. I'm actually going to bet this again for like protection and value. I don't think I get a reasonable amount of... I don't think he's going to check raise a ton. The 7 pairs, huh? Don't lead shove, that would be good. Okay, so this is getting really thin right now. So his 1 spade hands miss, his 7x get and his 6x get there. His 8x are still beat, and his pocket 9s are still beat. And he might have some hands like pocket 5s with a spade, which are now counterfeit, which are regardless. There's a chance he calls us with ace high, but it's like really not that amazingly high. So I would definitely jam some higher overpairs here, like the jacks and queens, because then he could have 10s, and we do beat more. So this is like really razor thin on river, but he's a recreational, and he kind of is not showing a lot of strength. I'm gonna actually go for the value. I do think he has an increased amount of like 8x in general, and I do think he has pocket 9s almost always. And there's a chance he calls off with ace high or does something stupid. And he just has the same hand, so we were just free rolling him. Unlucky to miss the free roll. Yeah, the thing is, I think queens and jacks, especially because he's not full stacked, I do think just pilot in pre most of the time, so to kind of discount them a decent amount of the time. He also snap called there with 10s, so this kind of showcases that he's not gonna fold pocket 9s, which I would like more than likely assume. I do think the 10-9, by the way, here is pretty close. I think in theory it's a slam dunk defend for 3x even. I think with rake it's pretty close, and I would definitely fold versus a 3x button open. Versus a blind, a small blind open, being in position, I do think it's good enough. I do think it's barely good enough. So I do think like 10-8 off is not a call for 3x there. I think 10-9 is barely good enough, and rather on like the really marginal side. So yeah, the pocket 10s. Unlucky to miss the slow free roll. But could be worse. Could have cut ourselves on the river. But I do think it's reasonable to shove there, even though it's like the worst hand I would shove there basically. I wouldn't shove pocket 9s there. I'm gonna defend here versus a 3-bet. It's a relatively big 3-bet, but I have a pretty strong hand. I mean, I do have quads here reasonably often. I also have a lot of pairs. Yeah, just gonna fold the ace high pretty happily. If I do want to call with an ace high there, it would be ace queen. But even then, I'm probably not gonna call. But with ace queen, you could make an argument to call there. It's not super unreasonable. Let's go ahead and 3-bet here. Going for a 3-bet. So this hand, I don't really want to flat. I don't think it has great playability post-flop. I don't really want to play it multi-way because it's really not a good hand multi-way. Generally, good hands multi-way are suited of the suited nature and usually like connected. So if it was ace-jack suited, it would be a reasonable hand to play it multi-way. But yeah, like this, I do want to just take it as a 3-bet bluff. Not even a real bluff because it's still a relatively strong hand, so yeah. More of a 3-bet merge, if you want to call it like that. Obviously pretty easy fold versus a 4-bet. Facing the snap 4-bet, just gonna fold my hand. I mean, peeling a 4-bet there is gonna be terrible. Our hand is extremely dominated, and yeah. Even ace-jack suited would be... And that's like the thing. With ace-jack suited, I don't really want to 3-bet a lot there. Yes, it has more equity. Yes, it has more playability. But first of all, I don't want to face a 4-bet, and I'm not afraid to go multi-way. After pocket 3, he's probably gonna see a flop. Trying to flop set. That's usually the plan of pocket 3s. Couldn't do it. Most of the time won't do it. He's probably gonna c-bet. I'm gonna fold. So yeah, I think the 10-9 off was a pretty good example for a 3x open there, which like for a hand that's like for a spot that's already marginal because of rake, but considered to be pretty standard. So for example, I would fold 9-8 off there, I would fold 10-8 off, and 10-9 off is where I draw the line from a standard 3x small blind open. If I had hard starts, we could also like take those into account somewhat, even though I don't think it changes a ton because generally our samples are going to be rather lowish. I don't think you want to go as fine folding Jack 10 off there ever. But if you would want to fold 10-9 off there, it's probably going to be just fine. Gonna open the a7 off, even the a7 suited, even though this is honestly pretty marginal from UTG. You could throw out those junky ace-x suited. You could even throw out the ace-x wheels, because I do think they are more, their opens are more or less worth 0. So they are like more or less, yeah, on the worth 0 amount. Same with, like, by the way, the baby pairs, the deuces through 5s. Generally from UTG, you can pretty comfortably just fold them. But also opening is gonna never be terrible. It's just like a marginal thing, right? A lot of guys kind of, how do I put this? A lot of guys are too drastic about those things. They are gonna say, oh yeah, definitely fold, or definitely open, slam dunk open with ace-2 suited UTG. No, it's not. It's gonna be a marginal spot, right? It's marginal either way. Like, it's either marginally okay and like winning a bit, or it's marginally losing a bit. It's never going to be totally terrible. You're never going to burn like 3 buy-ins there on average or whatever. Ace 10 off versus a min UTG open. Honestly, versus a 3x UTG open, Ace 10 off is like pretty marginal as a defend. I'm usually still defending it. So we get a cold call and a caller, and we flop relatively okay, but I'm gonna check it back on the spot. In a 3-way spot with a cold caller, I'm not thrilled about my hands. I'm not thrilled once he leads into 2 people for a big sizing. Here I'm gonna peel 1 with the nut gutter, and a reasonably high ace high is a pretty good turn for me. I could consider to lead, but I just don't think he's gonna fold enough for that. Okay, I'm gonna call 1 street and then I'm gonna fold river. Usually that's my plan here. Hoping he sometimes stabs some stupid hand and then gives up. I still have some equity to improve on. And he just snap ships it, which is pretty disgusting. Even when the spades get there. I definitely have spades. I mean, I play ace 9 of spades exactly the same way. Easy turn fold on a board pair, could be doing that. Yeah, we're just gonna fold here. Here for $1, it's a pretty huge sizing. If you would make it a bit smaller, I would probably float here with the ace 10, but for $1 we just fold. Yeah, with the ace 9, honestly, on the turn, it's already pretty marginal spot. I wouldn't blame anyone for just folding turn, because this guy cold calls a 3-bet and then leads the turn into 2 people. It's a pretty disgusting spot with ace 9. I'm basically not expecting to be good there really often. If so, good enough there. Yeah, barely the amount I need to. With the ace jack, I'm just gonna check and try to improve on a jack or a 10, even though the 10 is not really a sick improve. The jack would be pretty good. This guy cold calls a 3-bet. Okay, we do improve to the nuts, but how can we ever get value? I mean, this guy could still have queens, I suppose. This guy could have 10s. This guy could have the 1 combo of jacks, and this guy potentially could have kings, but not really that often. So there's definitely some value to be gained. I'm gonna bet relatively big. I don't really want to give those hands really sick odds. And I do think those hands kind of continue always. Yeah, with that sizing, he might fold. This guy might fold some 2 pairs, even though, like, look at it like this. His 2 pairs, like king, queen, queen, jack, are usually just betting the flop anyways. So if the river is not a board pent, we do block board pairs. It's good. Yeah. So we can never get value here. I mean, how do we ever get value here? I mean, is he really gonna call me with like queens? What if I bet really tiny? Okay. Let's try this. Let's go for something funky here, huh? Shall we? Let's go for 3-3-3 bet. $3.33. Is he capable of folding his pocket 10s or pocket queens versus that? Maybe we sometimes use his pass as well. And maybe sometimes like a 9 calls, but that's pretty that's pretty ambitious. Yeah, he just has an ace, which are GG's. Yeah. All 3 guys have an ace. Yeah, okay. GG's, guys. So I was pretty crushed on the flop. The ace queen and the ace king. Okay, chop it up. But yeah, good thing about micro gaming. I mean, I can't look back at it in the hand history, but so basically we just paid like the max. The rake cap is at 3 BBs, so the rake taken away from that put should have been 60 cents in a $60 or more pot. So that's not all that bad. That's pretty reasonable. Still a pretty funky spot. Like on the river, you're honestly not happy about seeing the raise. You're just like, oh, we chop. I think it's a. I mean, turn is so face up. Yes, it's super face up at the same time. There are some hands that give us pretty clear value, like pocket queens and pocket 10s. Or at least even if they fold, we still follow 23% equity or 20% equity. Because we blocked the jack. But yeah. And on river, it's like, what can you do? I mean, I'm not expecting those hands to ever turn themselves into a bluff. So I'm just gonna bet a tiny sizing. Sometimes we might induce a pass. Sometimes we do get paid by like pocket queens that just kind of think whatever. Maybe he plays 2 pair like that. Well, I don't know what he's thinking. Pocket 5 versus ace 10. Ace 10 just gets it in. I mean, that's why he's recreational. Please reload. So yeah. The 7-10 suited in the cutoff, pretty marginal. Probably would open it, but it's pretty marginal. Yeah. That's kind of that. So wait about 35 minutes. Each part of this 4-part series will be 30 minutes long, or roughly. It's gonna probably be a bit longer, honestly. He posts. I think he posted. Let's isolate him. It's gonna be more like 35 or 40 minutes long. So let's play until the next PB and go from there. So I think he posted his blind. So let's isolate him. Here we can 3-bet, we can call. I think versus UTG I prefer to just flat it, but 3-betting is certainly okay. And my plan is here to usually just call down. Okay, bets $1. We're gonna call. Gonna reevaluate our hand on certain turns and rivers. That's not one of them, that's gonna be a call. He picks up some equity with some hands, he sometimes just, I don't know. I mean, this is really a grim spot. I mean, he bets pretty huge. I'm just gonna hope to, honestly, I'm gonna hope the river is somewhat a scary card and we just check down and win versus ace jack or something like that. I mean, this should be a scary card for him. I do have some clubs in my range for sure. So we're gonna probably check and quite often honestly lose to like ace king here. But we certainly could beat ace jack or he just has 5-3 and okay, and also snaps the okay. That was an interesting hand. I mean, we honestly can't really do a lot there on the prior streets, right? We're just gonna call. If he bets that river, we're just gonna fold. It's kind of easy. He doesn't even bet trips there, so he's definitely not betting ace jack there. So we're only beating bluffs, and we do block some backdoor bluffs like with the queen of spades. Yeah, just gonna be a pretty trivial fold once he bets there. He doesn't bet trips there, which is somewhat fine, but I mean his preflop open and overall his barrel flop, whatever. Pretty ambitious line. Let's put it like that. We love him for his ambition. Yeah, by the way, with the ace-10, I'm just going on third there for several reasons. For like protection, value, sometimes getting floats of worse hands, and realizing my equity. I do want to see a turn there, and I don't necessarily want to check call. I think the 1/3 kind of achieves the same. So yeah, this is more or less it for like the first part. Gonna probably dive into like a few general grinding tips in the next parts, like especially while grinding kind of like a lot in a day and so on. Basically to just make your grind more enjoyable and easier. And yeah, let's just play out that orbit and hopefully see each other back at part 2 of this video series. Well, I kind of stuttered a bit there. Yeah, as always, guys, if you have any questions, any comments, any feedback, post them in the comment section or at PokerVIP at YouTube. I'm gonna check them out, read them, comment on them. Unlike my last video, I probably commented on every comment. So yeah, any questions, want to talk about any of the hands, go ahead, post it somewhere, or PM me at PokerVIP. I'm here for your service. Just ask. It's generally a good idea to just ask. And not be shy about it. Can they please not show me the 7-8? It's kind of making me sad. Okay. By the way, I generally advise you to always take the time to sit out at the next BB and not throw away that free equity. I don't know. Sometimes, yeah, it's probably okay to just do it because, I don't know, you really have to go to the toilet or you have to really leave for whatever reason. Then it's like fine, but generally you don't want to throw away free equity ever. Interesting. Bets? Snap bets. Huh. I mean, it's kind of, yeah, if it takes that long for to see like the last hand, which is probably going to be 6 deuce off. That's my read. I'm going to say it's going to be 6 deuce off. It's kind of yeah. Yeah, just call him, please. Thank you. Okay, let's see the last hand. Oh, and that's why we wait for it. Let's fucking go. Let's go. And I'm gonna get a walk. I mean, a walk is honestly fine. It's fine. Okay, so that's it for part 1. I hope you enjoyed it. And hopefully see you back at part 2. Cheers and GG's. Peace.